in their last desperate hours. Dan Simmons wrote a historical fantasy book about this. It's fantastic. The Terror. He took the real events and used them as the background to create a horror story from. It's so well written that when reading it I felt a desire to get under blankets against the cold and drink OJ to ward off scurvy. I read a story recently about Paulette Gabarra Farah, a 4-year-old child who went missing from her room in 2010. Her parents immediately notified authorities and started a social media campaign to find Paulette. Paulette's room was searched multiple times and used by her parents to do media interviews. Here's the terrifying part. Paulette was found dead 10 days later, in her bed. She had wedged herself between the mattress and the footboard and suffocated. Here is her bed before they found her. It's insane looking at that picture and knowing she is there and no one had found her. Here is an article for anyone interested. The story that inspired Candyman is pretty creepy. A woman in a Chicago apartment was murdered by some drug dealer who lived next door. How did he get into her apartment? Through a hole behind her bathroom cabinet mirror. I grew up on a farm in the Texas Panhandle, the boxy part on top, in a house a few miles from ours. Most of the members of a family were randomly murdered. One girl, 10 years old at the time, survived by pretending to be dead. The Ariel Castro kidnappings. Basically, a man living in Cleveland, Ohio, kidnapped 3 young girls named Gina DeJesus, Amanda Berry and Michelle Knight and kept them prisoner in his home in Tremont for 12 years. He even had a child with one, but more often than not, if one got pregnant, he would just beat them until they miscarried. Eventually, one escaped with the help of a man named Charles Ramsey who contacted police. Castro was bad enough. The mother of DeJesus went on a talk show with semi-renowned and infamous psychic Sylvia Brown, who told her that her daughter had died in Japan after being sold into sex slavery by Vietnamese human traffickers. The blue ring octopus has a venom that causes paralysis, causing people to die of cardiac arrest or because of hypoxia. There is no antidote. The cure is CPR or life support for the hour so it takes for the venom to leave the body. There was a man who was bitten by a blue ring octopus. As the lifeguard was performing CPR, he was lying on his back on the beach, facing the sky, eyes frozen open, unable to close his eyes or communicate with the others. He lied there as the sun slowly burnt out his retinas. He became permanently blind. The Broken Arrow killings. 2 brothers brutally murdered their entire family. At one point their young, 5 or 6-ish, siblings were hiding in the bathroom when one of the brothers pretended to need their help. Soon as they let him in, he killed them. One of their last words were, "Please don't kill me, I love you." Horrifying story. The Nutty Putty Cave incident. A spelunker got stuck upside down in a narrow cave for 26 hours. Crews tried to pull him out with pulleys, but had to be careful not to break his legs, because that could be fatal with the circumstances he was in. Rescuers even almost dislodged him, only for an anchor to fail at the last second, plunging him back into the crevice. He eventually died, and they sealed the cave shut with him inside. I read about this a few weeks ago. I had heart palpitations just thinking about being whole. Just scary as hell. Thinking about it now makes my hands sweaty. I never understood the fascination with diving into such tight and dangerous spaces. The murder of the Green family. A deranged pedo named Joseph Edward Duncan was already on the run from cops for a past sexual assault. He was incredibly charming and manipulative, and was truly pure evil. Home, unseen by them, he picked it out after driving past it and seeing children's toys outside. He watched them from afar, got to know their routine with the intent of kidnapping the children. 10-year-old Dylan, 8-year-old Shasta. The lock on the door was broken, entered the home in the middle of the night and tied up the mom, dad and teenage son. He put Shasta and Dylan in his car and killed the rest of the family with a hammer. He traveled around various campsites and cabins with Shasta and Dylan captive, sexually abusing, torturing and raping them. He eventually shot Dylan, but Shasta talked him out of killing her. Jed ended up telling her she taught him how to love. The scariest part is a CCTV footage of Jed and Shasta at a gas station. because you could easily believe they were just a normal dad and a grumpy daughter if you were an onlooker. HTTPS. YOUTUBE Mike Door. Eventually, he took her to a diner where he was finally apprehended when a waitress noticed something was up and Shasta was saved after 7 weeks in his clutches. As he was dragged away, he called to her, "Promise me you'll visit me in prison," and she said she would. I don't know if she ever did. Jed was put on death row and found to be guilty of 3 previous child murders. He died a few months ago from cancer, but the worst part of it all is how horrible Shasta's life has been afterwards. Drug addiction, in and out of jail, losing her children, etc. Just the most horrifying story ever. One day, this kid gets taken to school by his stepmom for a big science fair. Things go well, he has his picture taken, stepmom watches him go down the hallway to class, and he's never seen again. Joseph Fritzl imprisoned his daughter in a secret room in his basement for 24 years, and fathered 6-7 children on her. He actually effing planned the whole thing 6 years in advance, got a building permit and built an inescapable apartment-like prison underneath his house. He drove miles to dispose of trash and do shopping for the imprisoned and not be recognized while doing so. Seriously effed up. He was only found out because one of the children he fathered got seriously ill and had to be taken to the hospital after spending her whole 19-year-long life underground. He claimed that his daughter, Elizabeth, thought to have been abducted by a cult, dropped the granddaughter off at his house because she wasn't able to take care of the sick young woman. Doctors found the story fishy, involved authorities and demanded to speak to Elizabeth in order to find out what her daughter was suffering from. I'm on my phone so please forgive my formatting. In the 80s there was a Mexican cult led by an American named Adolfo Constanzo. They used to kidnap random people from tourist towns and nearby cities and perform human sacrifice on them in their rural Mexican desert compound, usually torturing in elaborate rituals for hours or days before finally letting them die. These rituals included vivisections, castrations, eyeball removal, tongue removal, teeth pulling, skin flaying, hanging, etc. They used amphetamines and coke to force the victim to stay awake during the torture and not pass out from shock. The cult believed the more pain and fear they could generate in the sacrifice victim, the more powerful the body parts would be as ritual trinkets and also for food for the cult's nganga, which is a large ritual cauldron used to store bones, blood, meat, and other valuable items that the cult believed gave them power. They used to make staves out of wired together spinal columns and they would often eat the victim's eyeballs during the rituals. They are believed to have kidnapped and sacrificed over 26 people to their nganga in their 3 years that they were active from 1986 to 1989. The leader committed suicide when the police showed up at their compound. They arrested 14 cult members, but most people believe there were...
Where'd you get all that money?
It's this game called
and made the people elementary school
You were my homie, lover, and friend.
Only 5 prisoners at the beginning. No showers, no quarty ward. After my hard work, the prison had finally improved.